We'd like to call the June committee meetings to order at this time. Want to remind commissioners to please turn your mics on. When you speak, speak through the mics. And then, would you make a motion? If you would raise your hand, or if you second a motion, if you would raise your hand, that would help our clerk out a great deal. At this time, the chair is going to recognize Chairman Bobby Hahn of the Education Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We call the Education Committee to order. Do we have any visitors that are wishing to speak at this time?
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I'd like to speak briefly on the moving of 9 cents, as I understand, from the school property tax, the school general purpose fund, into the county debt fund. I'd like clarification. What it appears to me is that you are essentially giving them an extra $1.3 million or $4 million, but you're giving it through the debt service. Because the only way you could move money and still keep maintenance of effort is because you've got other money, like the excess sales tax and other items coming in to the general purpose school fund. So that enables you to take money or pennies out of the general purpose fund and put them over in the debt. If that's the case, I'd just like to know, I'm not making an accusation, but that's what it appears to be, which is nothing more than another way of increasing what the schools get by a huge amount in order to facilitate or assist in the building of a school. And that's something the county has done for a long time, except in the 98 building program, which you would see in your budget. They required the schools to pay $500,000 a year toward that debt. This just appears to be a different way of putting money over there. And if you looked at the BEP, if you bothered to, you would see that they get about $8 million calculated by the state as their needs for capital outlay, debt service, architects, and so forth. But if you look at their audit, they don't spend that on maintenance, architects, and debt service. Again, it's just like I mentioned, it's like me giving my child $10 a week for lunch. The state gives them, 57, 58, whatever it is, million. And then it gets spent however that particular board wants it to. And whether that's good or bad, it's certainly a total lack of control. And you are giving more than the $200,000 that you've added as maintenance of effort and the $300,000 you've added as supposedly one time, which will happen for a couple of years. And you're giving roughly $1.3 million, but you're putting it over in debt service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noy. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak? Okay, if not, moving on to new business, we'll invite Dr. Jeff Perry to the podium for his presentation.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, certainly do appreciate the opportunity to come back out this evening. As we go through this, I've given you the PowerPoint, and we have these 3 objectives. First of all, I'll talk to you a little bit about the ESSER funding, because I think it's important that you know how we are spending that money and what we can spend it on. Then we will share our plans for the Lincoln Complex and look at some options, renovation versus new, to let you know that we have looked at those particular options, what our preliminary plans are, and then roughly some cost estimates. And then we'll respond to any questions that you may have. So you may know that the ESSER funds, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act, that was federal money. It's one-time money. Actually, I think the county has received some of that money also, not through ESSER, but through a different one, through the American Recovery Program. But we've actually received 2 different allocations. We're applying for the third one. And so in ESSER 1.0, that's already been approved and it's been allocated to the schools. ESSER 0.20, that's already been approved and allocated. 3, that one is going to be approved. We'll submit that probably in late July and get approval of that in August. So that's not been approved yet, but it's pending. And then you may have heard of ESSER 4.0. That is the infrastructure bill that the current administration was trying to push through. Got held up in Congress over the amount. So there's a possibility that that one may come through, but right now it looks a little bit doubtful if that's going to make it. So just so that you know that. The purpose of all of these, or A, B, and C, the first ESSER 1, 2, and 3, that was designed for very specific things, and they wouldn't let us use it for certain things. For example, the first was we had to cover learning loss. So any of the loss that occurred while we were out of school due to COVID, we had to make sure that those particular students received instruction. So while we were out March, April, and May, we had to identify those students, and today we started with summer school about bringing elementary school kids back to kind of work on some of that loss of learning that occurred last spring. Second thing that they allowed us to do, and this was one of the big things, we knew that we were going to have to go virtual. Most schools in the nation were not yet prepared to do that at the elementary and middle school level. So they said we had to use a lot of that money to get one-to-one devices so that every child had a computer. So if we did have to do virtual, they would have that computer and Wi-Fi capability at home. Also, they allowed us to do anything with safety and security. So it had something to do with the safety, well-being of staff and students, whether that was a help or an immediate danger, we could use it for that. And then they did say, and this is why it's important to us this evening, they did say that you could use it for specific facility improvements, but in 1 and 2, they said it had to be directly connected with health issues. So either you had an HVAC system that had no return air to it and was creating problems with respiratory issues, you could use it for that. If there was a clear and present danger piece, you could use it for that. But in the first 2, they said no new facilities. So you couldn't use it for facilities, you could use it for some renovation projects, but no new facilities. Then the last thing that they said, not really sure how this particular one got into the bill, but they said they would use it to promote any CTE activities. So career technical activities, and partly the reason, I guess, is there's a big push nationwide right now to get folks, or to get students engaged in CTE because there's so many industries needing workers right now. So as we get to this, there was a clear and acceptable use, went over technology, security, staff, CTE, all those things. But it did say that learning loss had to comprise 20% of the whole budget. So whatever they gave you, when you gave it back to them for approval, there had to be at least 20% in there for learning loss. And number 2, they did specifically say that any renovations had to be health approved or health related. In new construction on ESSER 3.0, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute, it had to be very closely connected with health issues. So they would let you do new construction, but you had to tie it to new construction somehow and say how you couldn't renovate the old facility effectively. So going through these ESSER ones, just so that you know what we have, our first allocation was about $2.3 million, and that went mostly to technology. So $1.87 million of that went to technology. We bought computers, we bought Wi-Fi capability so our students would have the capability to connect at home that didn't have internet. And then we also paid for some of the virtual learning that students would need. And then some of the summer programming that we have had starting right now and some of the after-school stuff. And then we put about $27,000 into some of our special ed. So in that first one, the vast majority of it all went to technology. In 2.0, we got a little bit more money, 8.9 million. Again, with technology, we put about 2.2 million into technology to go ahead and get us with one-to-one device. So with that money, every child then had a computer. We were able to, that if we had to close school down, and if you remember back in August and September, we were not 100% sure we were going to be able to stay in school every single day. And so if we had to be out for an extended period of time, we wanted to make sure that every child had a computer. So again, we ended up buying a lot of technology with that. And then what we did starting this year and going through next year is that one of the things that we found out, if you are going to teach a child to learn to read, it needs to be small group setting, because we want to do skill-based. If this particular child is missing this particular skill, you don't want them grouped together with the kid that already has that skill. You want to be able to separate them out and work with that particular skill. And so we've hired some teacher assistants and some other folks for the next 2 years in temporary positions to start out in the fall with us, to bring some of those groups down and then hopefully catch some of these kids up who missed some of that critical reading instruction that we didn't have for nearly 3 months. Then also we did some learning loss remediation, used about $1 million of that, so to get kids in after school, to get kids in during the summer, and to be able again to just try to catch kids up. Facility upgrades, we spent about $2 million improving some HVAC systems at some of our schools that needed some repairs, and again, that was approved, because anything that we were talking about HVAC that was respiratory, that was circulating air, then that was approved. And in CTE, we spent about $600,000 on some equipment to bolster our CTE program. So now we're at ESSER 3.0. We are proposing this. Our board will take this up at their July meeting. That will be approved, we hope, and then we'll go ahead and send it to the state for approval. But I wanted to go through it with you just a little bit. That was $20 million. Learning loss, they required us to do 20% for learning loss. So right off the top, we didn't have any option with that. We had to spend $4 million on learning loss. And then for capital improvements, we're spending half of that money on capital improvements that we received. We did talk to the state. They were a little bit concerned about brand new construction, but we did talk to them and they did agree to allow us to use $5 million of that for Lincoln Elementary. We're pretty certain. We talked to, there is actually going to be an approval form that comes out this week. We'll have to fill that out and send it in to the state, but we're relatively confident that amount would be approved, because we did talk to the lady in charge of that, and she said with that amount for this, we can pretty well approve that. Then what we've also got is we've got $5 million in for the renovation of Lincoln Middle. If you remember in our capital improvement plan I gave to you a long time ago, we were going to address West High School, we were going to address Lincoln Elementary School, and then Lincoln Middle School. So if we're able to fund the Lincoln Elementary, then we've got $5 million in to at least close up those classrooms at Lincoln Middle. And then if Lincoln Elementary is out of the elementary school, we won't have to do any outside work about adding classrooms out there, which will severely reduce the cost. And so we'll be able to knock both of these projects out with this particular project here. So we'd be able to take care of all of Lincoln's issues, Lincoln Elementary, and the vast majority of Lincoln Middles. It would be able to close in the classroom and then do the ductwork, which is a real issue for us. The other piece that we've talked about is Tally Ward. We've been in conversations with the city for a long period of time about the purchase of Tally Ward. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, but they have talked to us about that. And I'll show you on the next slide what we're going to be using that for if we can do that. Also, there was some COVID stipends that state allowed us, that individuals who were dealing with students during the virus piece, we could pay a little bit of stipend for that. Staffing for intervention, that is the staffing that we've got for summer school and after school next year. Technology, we still have some in that, CTE. And then the Judge Snyder asked for a court case manager. I believe that she may have come to the commission about that. She asked us to write a letter of support, and we said that we could probably end up helping out with that for the first 2 years because safety and security, family involvement was that. And so we did put some money in that to see if that project would work. So now, Tally Ward, and I think that all of you know where Tally Ward is located. This is the high school, this is Tally Ward Center. The city may have less and less need for that as the landing point opens up with the new community center. Right now, we're trying to expand our health services, and we don't have the room in the high school to do that. So we've got more kids wanting to enroll in this. Actually, we have about double the amount of enrollment needs than what we've got space for. So if we were to take this, we could expand our health sciences, and that would include preparation in nurses, emergency responders, pharmaceutical representatives, and then medical assistants. So again, we kind of think that if we're able to do that, we could expand into that and use those facilities to expand our health sciences. The other piece that we want to do with it is we're combining that with CTE program. We've started a new program called Educational Works, and what happens in that is that if a child is not really inclined to be that traditional student, I'm going to come into class every day, I'm going to sit down 4 blocks a day, I'm going to pass every single class I got. We have a growing number of students that just don't fit that mold. They're not going to go to college. They're not interested in post-secondary education. They want to go to work. And some of these students know what they want to do. They want to go in auto body. They want to go in welding. They want to do some of those kind of things. We've been fighting with them for the last 80 years about keeping them in school and preparing them for college. What we're looking at now is taking those students, and we will let those students work for 4 hours in the industry of their choice. So we're not just going to send them down to a minimum wage job, but they've got to have a job that they're actually doing an apprenticeship with. So I'm going to go into welding, I'm going to go into auto body, I'm going to go into something. And then the student would go to work 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and then they'd come back to us, and we would make sure that they've got the credits that they need to graduate. We want to make sure that student is on point to graduate. But right now what we have, if a kid goes and works at Tough Torque, goes to work at Molly, goes to work wherever, then the classes that they need to graduate may have happened in the morning, and then that doesn't work for them. And so here we would be able to bring them in, do their classes, and then still be able to do the work piece plus the education piece, and keep an eye on them to make sure that they're maintaining good attendance and that they are on track to graduate. The other part that we've got is preschool daycare to do. We really would love to have a universal preschool. We don't have the building space for it right now. This would give us the ability to have that space then for preschool. And then it would give us the gym. Right now we are having students go out to practice, and they're practicing 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, even elementary school kids. And this would enable us to use to free up some of our gyms to get kids in and out quicker. Here are the estimates for the renovation. If we were to go with the renovation with Lincoln Elementary. Now these are just estimates, and these numbers, anybody could go through any one of these numbers and say it was greater or smaller. We agree with that. We got a Cope and Associates. They would be the architects that we would use. And we asked them to give us some estimates about what it would cost. So right now, converting those open classrooms to conventional enclosed classrooms, so we're taking the open classrooms, closing them up. We've estimated about $145 a square foot on that, so it'll be about $5.6 million. And then, as I've told you before, when we create those hallways to create the 2 exits, we're going to have to consume floor space to do that, so that destroys classrooms. So we've got to include additional classrooms outside the building, and that's going to cost about $2.5 million. Now, while we are doing this renovation, we have to put the kids somewhere. So we either got to buy mobile units or we got to lease mobile units. If we were to buy them, those mobile units would be about $1 million, so $900,000. And that would be a cost, that we don't really get to recoup on that because we may or may not have use for those. If we rented them out, they're expensive to rent also. And then we'd have to go ahead and provide electrical to those, some ramps to those, different kind of things. Had to put temporary parking up at the football field. So when we get through with it, about $12 million for renovation. Okay. Now, this is what it would look like. So at the top in the red area, this would be, the inside part of this is the existing school. This is Lincoln Elementary. This is the front entryway. Over here on this side would be the middle school. And if you don't know, Lincoln Elementary is on the left-hand side. Lincoln Middle is on the right-hand side. And so this is the existing piece. We would have to put 4 classrooms back here in the back where the playground is, and we would have to put 5 classrooms on the front where the sidewalk is and the parking is. In addition to that, what we would have to take is we'd also have to take this part of the football field for temporary parking, because we would place the mobile units that we'd have to have in the parking lot. So if you've ever been through Lincoln early in the morning from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, you know how bad the traffic is there. It backs up all the way out to the street. Parking is horrible there all the time. If we were to take this section for mobile units, it's just going to create even more headaches and problems for us. Now, the other problem that we have with this too, if we do this for Lincoln Elementary, then when we do the same thing for Lincoln Middle, we're going to have the same problem there. So we would have to add additional classrooms out into this area for that and take up even more parking. So the renovation we felt was not a strong option. This is a model of a program that we're looking at right now for the new construction, if we were to do that. And the thing that we want to emphasize to the commission, we are not looking at that Taj Mahal kind of school. We are looking for something very attractive, because you don't have to build, it's no more expensive to build attractive than it is to build ugly. So we can build an attractive school, but our school is built on functionality. So it would be the traditional hallway with the classrooms. We would put all of the community use pieces up front, and that's how we build schools currently. And in that way, with one door locked right here, you could block off all the classrooms and then still have capability to get to the gym, to the cafeteria. And then your cafeteria would also serve, if you did have basketball games, you could sell concessions in there. You could also use that as a staging area for any event that you were to have. If it were to be a Christmas program or something of that nature, then you can use the cafeteria and still block off the rest of the building. So estimates on that, when we say a 600, this is a 600 to 750 student school. It really depends on how many kids you put in a classroom. If you put 25 in a classroom, or if you put 20 in a classroom, then of course it makes a difference about how many you could actually get in there. But somewhere around 600 to 700 students, and this would be the total cost. So we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $26 million. So that would include all of the soft costs, that would include furniture, fixtures, equipment, that would include architectural fees, that would include purchase of land to a degree, the technology, all the geotechnical surveys, all of that. So it'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of 26.6. If we wanted to do it for 800, and the only reason we put this in, we do have some growth potentially in the county that we're looking at with all the new housing developments that's coming up. It could be a possibility that we could rezone, pull some of the existing students that go to some of these other schools that may experience that particular growth, rezone some, and then send those to the new schools so that we can alleviate some of the pressure on some of those schools that really are already full. So for the 601 would be about 27 million. The 800 school would be a little over 29. So that would be something that we would have to discuss. We did talk about some of the pros and cons. We do think that there are some benefits to renovation. We do think certainly less initial cost. We think it may be more costly in the long run, but certainly would be less initial cost. The benefits, I think, of the new construction, it does provide us a 50-year solution. So schools, right now, got a lifespan about 50 years on them. It would eliminate the need for mobile units. So that $900,000 that we were spending on mobile units, then that goes away. Plus what it does, it gives us a staging area for other construction projects if we needed them in the future, that we wouldn't have the need for mobile units because we would have that space available, that when we did Lincoln Middle, we could move Lincoln Middle over to the elementary school and not have to have those mobile units and redo Lincoln Middle. It eliminates a lot of the traffic issues that we currently have on Lincoln, and then also onto the main road there. It would eliminate a lot of our parking issues because we just don't have, we wouldn't have as many students now going into that place because we've got about 600 students going into the elementary school and about 500 or so students going into the middle school. It does increase the amount of playground area that we would have for the elementary school. And one of the big things, it does eliminate a lot of the renovation disruption. So you can imagine trying to work in an open classroom, what it would take to do that and do that without creating disruptions in those particular classrooms. And as I said, it would provide a staging area for other programs. So at this time, I'm going to ask the assistant principal, Krista Christian, to come forward at this time. And she wants to talk to you just a little bit about her perspective from a staff member.
Good evening, Commissioners. On behalf of the staff and students of Lincoln Heights Elementary, I thank you for your time and attention. In the past 14 years, I've had the opportunity to serve Lincoln Heights Elementary as a teacher, a reading specialist, and now as assistant principal. During the time that I've been there, I've seen nothing but the best of Hamilton County. Our staff and students are second to none. One of the things I wanted to share was our progress. So in the past 3 years, in 18-19, we were designated as a school reward status school for the state of Tennessee for our growth. In 19-20, we were on track to repeat a good testing year just before our school year was cut short. And in 2021, our benchmark scores for this year have been on track to be some of the best TCAP scores we've had in the history of the school. In fact, in some grade levels and in some subjects, we have been top in the district. In 2021 and 22, we're adding a couple of designations. We're going to be a trauma-informed school, which will help a lot of our students with their social emotional needs, as well as bolster our positive behavior and interventions and support, which supports our students as a whole student, not just their educational needs, but their behavior, their social emotional counseling, those kinds of needs. Just this year, that program decreased our discipline by 17%. So as a teacher and as a coach there at Lincoln Elementary, just to think a little bit about our demographics, we're about 550 students. We are pre-K through 5, and we have approximately 50% of our students who speak a second language, 25% that have special needs, and nearly 100% of our students come from poverty. But we don't use any of those statistics as an excuse. Our motto at school is whatever it takes, and our students and teachers embody that every day. Our vision statement for the school is excellence and a commitment to every learner. So the commitment that I'm asking for you is for safe and equitable schools and facilities. Our classrooms are open and they're quite noisy. They're overcrowded. We've simply outgrown our space. And although we've made great strides and we feel like we have the best teachers, we have retained the best teachers, we are giving students everything we've got, we need a little support in our learning environment. And so I just wanted to reiterate to thank you for your support and your consideration of this building project, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, and we do have some other teachers with us here this evening. Certainly appreciate them coming out. If you want to see what a good teacher is, you can go to Lincoln Elementary School. They do have this motto of whatever it takes, and I firmly believe that that resides deep in their soul. They care deeply about kids. They have some of the most at-risk kids that we have in this entire district. But right now, they are making tremendous gains and outperforming some of our schools that they really shouldn't be. And the reason why they do that is they've got some very dedicated and committed teachers. But they also have probably the worst facility in the entire district. With this open classroom, some of you went to those classrooms and saw that. And it's not just the instructional environment, but if an armed intruder were to get into that school, the number one way to protect yourself is to lock a door. There are no doors to be locked once you get inside the school in the vast majority of these classrooms. And so, as we go through this, our board is requesting that we be able to build a new elementary school. We would put the $5 million of the ESSER funding into that. And then we'd also renovate Lincoln Middle as much as we could with the $5 million, which I think would get us to enclose the classrooms and improve the ductwork. The HVAC systems are about 15 years old there, so we think we can still use the HVAC. But the problem is the ductwork is that pressed, laminated paper stuff, and it's literally falling apart. And so we've got to replace that and do some makeup air with it. And so the request is if we could get the funding for the 22 million somewhere in that particular area, then we believe that with the 5 million we would have from ESSER, we would be able to make some of those estimates work that we shared with you originally. We know it's a big ask. We know that there are many things that's on your plate. We've said that every time. We understand that. However, you know, we do have facility needs. We can't generate money ourselves to do that. We do need some help with the funding. These folks behind me here have given everything they've got to make this work. It would be very, very difficult for any of us to do our jobs in an open classroom environment, and it's very, very difficult for them to do that. So, Mr. Chair, at this point in time, I will entertain any questions that you may have.
Dr. Perry,
Yes, sir.
I got 3 or 4 questions.
Okay.
Have you exhausted all the looks at the entrances and stuff like that
At
at
the
Lincoln?
what?
Have you exhausted all the looking at of the way to get into Lincoln? You know, I know it's a problem over there. And we've talked once about coming in off of Cumberland.
To do what? I'm sorry. Pardon. I'm sorry.
We talked once about coming in off of Cumberland Avenue.
Yes.
That's out.
We looked at a couple of different sites. And all of those sites that we looked at, it had one or more problems associated with it. Either infrastructure was going to be extremely difficult to get in, or we had drainage issues coming off of Cumberland. There was an area that we looked at back there that it seemed like as we looked at it, water from both of those hills came down into that one little valley. And so as we looked at that one, if that's the one you're talking about, as we had our engineers look at that, they really felt like that was not a feasible option. It would cost us millions just to,
The other thing that I was looking at was on the far east side of the elementary.
yeah.
Is there not enough space there to add?
I don't really have a picture of that, but are you talking about toward Cumberland?
Yeah.
No, there's a pretty significant grade that goes off of there. And there's room over there, but we would have to build that particular area up. We'd still have the traffic issues. We'd still have some of the problems, and we don't own all of that land. You know, there's always possibility we could purchase that, but that land dips off there. And then you got to bring dirt in from somewhere, and you got to fill, and you got to compact, and you got to build up. So,
It's just dirt.
yeah.
It's just dirt.
We found out, dirt's not cheap necessarily when you're talking about construction and compacting it.
It's not dirt.
Now, the issue that we would have with that is that even if we did that, even if we moved the school on out east in that particular direction, then we still got the traffic problems. We still got the lack of playground facilities. We actually did go up on top of the mountain too, because we own all the way to the top of the mountain. We did discover there's rock up there, and some places don't know how deep it is, don't know how, extensive it would be. There's also a graveyard up there that would be hard, virtually impossible to remove. So we did look on that campus. We even looked at the possibility, what if we took the football field up, leveled all that up, and then did that, but then you lose your football field, and then you got the elementary on this side, and then, new classrooms over here, and getting those kids to lunch and some of those things, not insurmountable, but certainly would be an issue for us.
What,
One more thing on that. When, on the Tally Ward, you don't put all these things in the Tally Ward, the daycare and the pharmaceutical stuff. On some of that, will that eliminate some of the busing that we have going to West High from east?
It could help us out in a lot of different ways, we think. So right now, we don't really know if it would be an economic factor, but the thing that we do realize is an instructional benefit. Now, most of the kids that would be going there would probably actually be driving themselves, because they would be driving, this would be set up for juniors and seniors, and you would need transportation to get to work.
have you, what site are you looking at if you should build a new elementary school?
Right now, we would prefer not to say that in public. It seems like the price of
Okay.
land goes up dramatically
Yeah,
when we're looking for land, but we do have a site in mind.
okay.
And
I understand that, so.
so, and it's not that I'm trying to evade the question, but
No, I
I think you all
understand.
know that once you publicly announce that, then all of a sudden,
Becomes gold.
it does. It becomes very, very expensive.
I knew several years ago when you were looking at maybe one high school, all of a sudden we had several pieces of property that were worth over $2 million.
Yeah, that does tend to happen.
So this would be a new land purchase, wouldn't go on land that you already have?
We have a piece of property, of course, over at Fairview Marguerite right now. That piece, we did look at that, and the problem that was associated with that is that road going into it right now. There's already so many problems associated with that particular road that we felt, and then once you get to that, if you're not going to go through Fairview, if you've got to build that infrastructure in, that was going to cost us a fortune just to bring roads into that place down there, because those roads, Turkey Branch, I believe, or Turkey Creek is so narrow in that area.
Dr. Perry,
Yes, sir.
could you expand, number one, I was one that was able to tour Lincoln Heights, and they are to be commended for what they do, and it's, if West High School hadn't been for one, that would certainly have been number one. The need is certain. What's the population trends we have going on? You said, we look for our county to possibly grow, but in school population in the last few years, like at Lincoln, or, some of the trends that we've heard about is reduction.
We have. Yeah, we've actually we have lost some students. We've lost some students out in the Russellville area. We've lost some students out in the Alpha area, the Manly area. I think most of our city schools, though, they're actually remaining pretty strong. I'm just trying to think that we actually reduced some teachers at some of the schools, and it's those inner city schools that, or not inner city, but the city schools that have a little bit of growth. Hillcrest, I know, is growing. I think Lincoln Elementary and Middle are holding their own. So it's more in their outlying areas that we're not seeing the growth.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Howard.
Do you, how many students have you lost to, let's say, the new Christian school that's, do you have an estimate of that?
I do. We looked at that at one point in time. Now, of course, we don't know where everybody goes all the time, but when we looked at that, we probably lost about 150, maybe 200 students to that K through. But now we have heard.
And those are the upper achievers, probably?
No,
No?
no, not necessarily. We didn't really see that in that area.
Okay.
Now, we've got a bunch of those kids back, that some of those kids left and some of the parents thought it was going to be a better situation and they've come back.
Okay.
So, but when I looked at that initially when it first opened, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 150, 200 students.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify though, on the population trends, I mean, we see our city schools holding steady. We've got populations coming back, like John Hay, Meadowview. We see subdivisions coming in and those could grow a little bit. What we're just, excuse me, the question would be, long-term, is rezoning a possibility?
Yeah, we said that in the very first, and we are committed to that, because what we've got to do is we've got to have high utilization of the classrooms we have. And so, now it would be not possible for me to bring a Russellville student to Hillcrest.
Sure.
I mean, I can't do that. But on some of the areas, like in the outside edges of Hillcrest, at Witt, or some of those areas, we could pull those particular students and rezone those students to go to the places that we had the most availability of classroom seats.
But you don't see that as being an alternative to what you need here at Lincoln?
No, that Lincoln is one of our largest schools, so if you're talking about farming some of those students out, no, that wouldn't be, because Hillcrest is full. West Elementary School doesn't have the availability, so that really wouldn't be, and then certainly couldn't send them to John Hay. So Fairview, we do have a little bit of reduction in Fairview, but that would be a relatively long trip for kindergarten.
Okay, on that, if we were to get the new middle,
The new middle,
I'm sorry, new elementary.
yes.
And then renovate the new middle, what becomes of the old elementary?
Elementary. Part of what we would do with that, just as we talked about, that if you were to see this, that we would have to add these additional classrooms on the outside, because Lincoln Middle is going to be the same situation. When we enclose those, we're going to lose probably 8 to 10 classrooms. So with that, what we would do with that is we would just bleed over into here and use some of these classrooms, probably for resource areas. So we would do music over in there, art over there, some of our CTE program for middle school. And so instead of building outside the envelope, we would build inside the envelope to reduce cost. And then we'd actually also use this, instead of using the mobile units, we would use this area for staging, so that students would just simply go over there for while construction was going on, and then we could return them back in the classroom.
So does that alleviate your traffic issue? Leaving both sides open? You know, part of what we're dealing with is the traffic problem on
Yeah.
Lincoln. If we build a new school, a new location, you still have this school, but not as much population is what you're saying at this.
Well, the thing that we normally see, the majority of our parents who drive kids to school are elementary age students.
Sure.
A lot of the high school students are going to catch rides with friends, or they're going to drive themselves. Middle school, we have some, and they do that normally if a kid, you know, if they have a brother or sister in elementary school. We don't have as much traffic with the middle school as we do with the elementary. So if we were to move the elementary school away from this site to a different location, because we're not only dealing with middle school and elementary here in Lincoln, we're also dealing with those high school students that's trying to go through that area to get to the high school too, and trying to leave the high school. So it comes from all directions. So I think when we built these schools 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever it was, we never really thought that parents would do this much driving. You know, that everybody was riding the bus at that time and it worked. Now, we have several hundred students coming to school every day at Lincoln Elementary in cars.
Thank you, Dr. Berry.
You're welcome, sir.
Anyone else have anything? Any questions? Let me say this, I commend these Lincoln middle school teachers,
Elementary.
for the open classroom. I started my career in a traditional classroom with 4 concrete block walls and a door. And then after 3 years, I went to another school, and it wasn't just an open, it was a warehouse.
Yeah.
There were no doors, the library had no walls, there were no walls, I mean, nothing. And that was back in the days when corporal punishment was still okay. So a kid got rung up over here, you heard it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's tough on it's horrible for students. I don't know, I never understood that, but I commend you guys. tremendously. I understand that, and I didn't have the best focus in the world as a teacher, so I'm sure it distracted me, but we appreciate that, and then thank you, Dr. Perry.
Well, Mr. Chair, we do appreciate that, and just to conclude the whole, we know most of what you guys receive are probably good proposals. Your job is that you got to fund it somehow. And there are several people that always question that particular funding. You know, we're always going to be concerned about facilities. We've got to replace those. If we don't, at some point in time, we get so far behind, it's just like buying buses. If we don't buy 3 or 4 buses every year, we get to the point that we just can't keep up, and we put kids in a dangerous situation. We're in this same situation here, we feel, is that we need a good learning environment, but it's not only learning, guys. It's a situation, again, if someone were to get into that building, we just have no way of secluding ourselves in some of these classrooms. And so the thing that we ask you this evening, if you can help us out with this, we have allocated a significant portion of our money toward going toward this program in Lincoln Middle. Now, we do have to submit this in July and August. We can always make amendments as we need to, but the sooner we know about this, because I do have to get it spent. I believe it's in 2 years, 2.5 years. So we have to have this money spent.
That'll be a problem.
Or it's got to revert over to something else. So it's situations where we don't have to know an answer tomorrow kind of thing, but it would help us to go ahead and know so that we could begin to prepare for this. And the other part, and I'll end with this. I think the thing that is probably the most concerning to me, we've got about 99% of these students eligible for free and reduced lunch. These kids don't come from the affluent parents. These kids don't come from the parents who's going to come here and shout to you that they need a new school. These parents are going to take whatever we give them. Guys, it's a sad situation now. That the kids who need it the most, the kids who need the most opportunity, they just don't have the political clout. They don't have the political awareness to be able to speak for themselves. You got a great bunch of teachers. They just need the facility in which to work. So we do appreciate any help and support you could give us in this. And it would be something. This is one of those legacy pieces that's a 50-year kind of solution, and we certainly appreciate the time that the committee has given us, and we're available for any questions, other questions you may have, and if any commissioner wants to go on a tour of the building, we'd be happy to take you there. So
You do have a commitment from us, which will be hopefully approved on the 24th.
okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. I do appreciate everything that the commission does. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. That's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Hahn. At this time, the chair will recognize Chairman Horner of the Justice Center Jail Project Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the Justice Center Jail Project Committee to order. If anyone wants to address this committee, you may do so at this time.
Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I guess we go from the non-Taj Mahal school to the Taj Mahal jail. I want to simply recount where we are on the jail. And if this is where you want to go and this is where you think our money should be spent, then heaven help us all. If we build the jail Justice Center per the plans that were put out for bid in April, the current low bid, and that's finishing the 3rd floor, everything, is just under $88 million. Then we've already spent over $4 million. So that makes it $92 million. The estimate for fixtures, furniture, and equipment is about a little over $3 million. So that's $95 million. Then if you include the millions that are still owing on the various contracts like the project manager, the architect, the commissioning services, and contracts that have not yet been awarded, like the inspections and material testing contract and others. And a small contingency, of course, the schools added 10% contingency. If you put 10% on this one, we're talking about 105 million. But if we put a small contingency on it, we have a $100 million jail justice center. That's an outrageous amount of money, especially when we can meet our inmate needs. And our needs are not as large as they were projected to be years ago with those old studies. Now that we have the jail bail lawsuit and situation that has reduced the population of the jail tremendously, we could probably meet our needs with just two 400-man or two 200-man pods, one level, safer, and less costly to staff, and then a renovated justice center. Obviously, the estimate for the pods or the one-level jail have gone up, just like the estimate that Mr. Shipley gave of $65 million just 7 or 8 months ago. Went to heck with the 88 million, 92 million, 100 million. So, maybe the two pods or two pods, maybe 50 million, maybe 55 million. But a tremendous savings to the taxpayers, particularly at a time when you're being asked to fund significant amounts for the schools. And I know there's money floating everywhere. And we always talk about being so conservative. There's not a conservative in this country, I don't believe. Washington's printing money, throwing it out there. Our inflation is going up. Our gas is going up. Everything is going crazy. So let's be conservative, truly conservative in what we do with our jail. And let's look at either two 200-man pods, maybe to start out with. And then if you have a need later on, with the land we bought over there, you've got land to build another 200-man pod, and now you've got just what you wanted. But the jail has gone crazy. And I did change my shirt. I wasn't able to make 100 million, but it says 95 now. And I remember when I was told, you can't wear that shirt because that's slanderous. Oh, it's not a $75 million project. I apologize. You were right. It's 100 million. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address?
Hi, Karen Arwood, 1501 Eller Road. I updated my shirt too, or I'm working on it. I got a big X wrong on the 75. 100 million or more. It's ridiculous. And I'd much rather, seriously, yes, we need a new jail. But I would much rather this county to put money into education of our children, our future. And 22 million, you still think, wow. And I've got to stop and not add that on to 100 million for the jail and make it 122. 22 million seems so much better than 100 million. And I have to kudos to Dr. Perry as well for he had everything so laid out, presented to you and all that stuff that I think our illustrious mayor could take lessons on how to have things researched and laid out for you. Thank you very much. But anyway, project update, I don't know what's coming up. I just don't think that we need to be looking at valued engineering or cutting or what we can take out of the current plan. I think we stop, back it up, look at a much simpler plan. please. And Hale House renovations, it's gonna be addressed. Somehow we ended up buying a house, and now we got plans to do renovations that had nothing to do with having a new jail to begin with. All of this has just gone crazy, and y'all just need to put the brakes on, stop, look at this, and quit. This has gone nuts. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address?
There are Woodell Road, Morristown. Senator Lewis, Dr. Perry, he put out a good proposal, just to round it off to a round number, $30 million for 800 students. Yet y'all want to spend $100 million for 600 prisoners? Where's the logic in that? It kind of shows where you're putting your money and where your priorities are. It's not over here where they should be, taking care of these kids. You're more worried about your Taj Mahal over here and making you fancy offices and courtrooms and all this and taking care of your elites. When you should be taking care of what's right over here in the poorest area of town. A lot of y'all made remarks about just wait till the bids come in, just wait till the bids come in. If it's too high, we'll put a stop to it. Well, the bids did come in too high. And the very next meeting y'all have them bids, there was not any of, we need to back this up. All y'all want to do is, how can we move numbers around? How can we increase debt? How can we push ahead with what we want to do? He told how many of us, myself personally, was called a liar by one of your commissioners for saying it's 75 million. Oh no, we done got it down to 65 million and we're going to get it down even more. Well, who was the liar? It wasn't me. Instead, if I lied at all, it's because I got it too low at saying 75. When is even one of y'all going to stand up and say, this is out of control? We got to stop this. Because if you don't, Dr. Perry's going to wind up with a $30 million school, which he should have. Then you're going to wind up with a $100 million jail. And we're looking at $130 million of debt on top of what was our current level. What, 34 million? $164 million we're looking at total? I mean, when is somebody going to stand up and say, enough? And put the brakes on. We can't afford this. Every one of you in here, I'm 57. I assume every one of you is either a little bit older than me or at least the same age. We've lived long enough to know there is nothing the government ever does that comes in under budget. It's always over. The mayor himself admitted to you you're looking at 95 million. You know it's going to come in more than that. Y'all know that. Put the brakes on this before you bankrupt this county. We're going to wind up like Orange County, California, which was the first county in the United States to declare bankruptcy. We can't afford this. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. We have another mess like this COVID come out. How are we going to pay these taxes it's going to take to pay back $160 million? You got to stop. Y'all are smarter than that. You've lived long enough. You know this ain't going to work. Put up, somebody have the guts to stand up and say, stop. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Bonnie Bullington, 317 Stubblefield Street, Whitesburg. And I too would like to commend Dr. Perry for an excellent PowerPoint presentation. We've never received anything like that from this commission or from Burwell or Pettit or anybody. It's just bits and pieces here and there. And those bits and pieces that we keep getting leads to lots of questions. In May, you said Mosley designed the jail so that only one elevator company was qualified to bid. What elevator company was the only bidder? How much did they bid? What was your estimate for the elevator? How many companies were able to bid on the steel jail cells? And what were those bids? will you provide your pre-bid estimate for the jail justice center? What was Mosley's estimate prior to the April bid opening? And have you looked at a design that might be cheaper, possibly just building a 200-man pod jail? You know, I said several months ago that this jail would cost $100 million. And here we are at the $100 million mark. And after all the bids were in and everything, I revised that to $110 million. But if it keeps going, it's going to be $120 million just for this Taj Mahal jail. And that's ridiculous. Hamlin County's not that big a county, and the people of Hamlin County cannot afford this kind of a jail. We don't need a fancy Taj Mahal with fancy offices. We need a jail, a standard jail, to house the inmates. Then maybe some programs can be opened up to help the inmates. You know, there's lawsuits left and right about the jail, and that's only going to continue. And once you get this big fancy jail of yours up and in operation, you can bet there's going to be even more lawsuits. And I'm telling you, this is going to absolutely break this county. The people cannot afford to pay for your pipe dream. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, item 3A, our project update, Tony Pettit from Burwell.
How you doing? Good evening. Kind of update you on what we've been doing since the last time I've talked to you. We've had a few, I got some sources from AGC, American Associated General Contractors of America, and some reports on what just general statements on what the construction industry is doing. Real quick, year over year from March 2020 to March 2021, everybody knows, I think, what's going on, but I want to just run over some numbers. Diesel fuel is up 80%. Copper and brass is up 40%. Lumber is up 63%. Though there is some good news on the lumber, that it's softening a little bit. Hadn't seen a recession in the prices yet, but they are softening as far as futures on that. Steel mill products are 40%. Lumber prices in April set a new record for inflation, and so did steel. It's up 11% in that. So, all that to say, the pandemic caused havoc with the production of goods, a deep freeze in Texas, an earthquake in Japan, and the Suez Canal was blocked. So that's a lot of bad news. We think AGC, Associated General Contractors, thinks the inflation will slow, but right now in the near future, it's unlikely that materials are going to recede in the next 7 or 8 months. Briefly, what we've been doing since the last time I talked to you, we're still looking at VE. There's continue the engineering on the foundation, changing pile caps to mat foundations. Looks like that idea is going to work. We talked a whole lot about micropiles, and when the micropiles was in there, we had, I can't remember, I think 800 micropiles, and they were 9-inch diameter micropiles at 65 feet deep. What's going to happen now with this mat foundation is you eliminate a lot of the formwork, excavation, and stuff, and you pour this one thick slab. It allows you to reduce the number of micropiles, but more importantly, it will allow you to go from a 9-inch micropile to a 7¼ inch micropile and some 5-inch micropiles. And if you recall, The 7 1/4 inch micropiles are 50% cheaper per lineal foot than the 9 inch micropiles. So there is going to be some value there on what the engineers are working on. Burwell estimated the mat slab versus the pile caps was a savings of $70,000, and that's based on just us saying there's an 18-inch mat slab versus all these individual pile caps. Plus, you get the savings of eliminating a soil cement treatment below that slab. So, in turn, we're going to put a permanent soil nail wall in, and that's going to add money, but it offsets all the savings you have on the reduction of the micropiles and the depths. And I went way into the woods on that, but if you got any questions, stop and ask. We're still reviewing what we can do with the veneer of your building, the outside skin. We're reviewing options on the precast, and right now it had a thin set brick in it. The designers are looking at what other kind of treatment we can do, simplifying the parapets, and we're shelling. We're right now going forward with the VE idea of shelling in one courtroom. We are going to reduce the clear story in the entrance, and that's kind of what's ongoing now. The designer's goal is to have the project ready to bid by the end of July again, and hopefully for an August bid. With that, we are going to go ahead and open up the pre-qualification process again. The market has softened a little bit, so we may get more competition interested in the project. And so the architect is going to be issuing that pre-qualification request again for bidders. And that's what we've got so far. Any questions?
You send out for more pre-qualification, how's that gonna help you?
Well,
I mean, the price is going up every day.
Well, you're going to have more competition, or somebody else is interested in it. Their market's softening. What's going to help us is just competition. What else also helps us is the engineering that we're doing on the value engineering, changing the way that we address the design of the building.
But isn't there a risk, with, you said in a few months, some of these prices will go down, but there's also the risk that the interest rate may go up significantly.
Yeah, I'm not a finance guy, but right now you have, and this is hard for a conservative to say, cheap money, but you also have high pricing. So what will happen, in my humble opinion, is it'll probably flip-flop.
Yeah. Some of these things, I'm hesitant about using the word accusation, but, the foundation issue, that sort of makes us look bad, but it even makes Mosley look better. Because why wasn't this addressed initially, in the original plans? And all of a sudden, we come up here now and we're changing some of this that could have been changed initially, you see. I have problems with that.
Well, yeah, the mat foundation is kind of that's a different approach than these individual pile caps. They were discussions going on prior to bid about the reduction of micropiles and the depths of the micropiles. The depths of the micropiles are bid, and then you adjust off of that. Some of the issues on that, and if you'll track the history of the bid, you'll see that in the addenda that got addressed. In fact, that's one of the reasons it bid in April rather than March, is because they went back and redesigned their micropiles. When we got to actually look into the pricing, and we were allowed to actually talk to the subcontractors that are presenting the pricing to the general contractors, we found out that if you put in a permanent soil nail wall, that you could probably change that foundation underneath there to reduce the stresses and shear forces on that wall. You spend a bunch of money, you spend $60 a square foot on the permanent soil nail wall, but then in turn, you get to reduce the micropiles. And I think this came to light once you had the pricing for the micropiles, pricing for the grading, and you had it all together. Once you had those bids, you find out that there's a better way of doing it than what was designed.
And we didn't know that beforehand?
No, we knew that we had a whole lot of micropiles. We knew that they were 9-inch, and we knew they were too deep beforehand. But
But you still bid them?
you still bid them at that depth, yeah.
That's
Why?
not going to create any future problems with cracks and
No,
or
it's
anything like that?
it's just another way of approaching those foundations.
Okay. Well, you can see that I don't quite understand all there is about this construction
Well, it's a
process,
complicated,
but
it's a complicated foundation. It's becoming more simple. But it's still being engineered. There's engineers working on it that understand the shear, the overturn moment of the walls and all that. So once you had all those components put together, you could realize that there is a possibility of saving that money as a mat foundation. It's been done at the engineering building at University of Tennessee. At first you think there's no way you can pour one big thick foundation and it's going to be less expensive than individual pile caps. But when you combine all that together and eliminate the soil cement, and you reduce your number of micropiles, it starts to make sense.
And I don't know whether I understood you correctly, but we're down to one courtroom now?
No, we're just shelling in one courtroom. You had 3 in the design. You're down to 1. No, I'm sorry. You're shelling in one courtroom. We're considering an alternate space for that maybe, but we're down to 2 courtrooms fully outfitted and shelling in another one.
Oh,
And all it is what we call a vanilla box.
okay, I understand.
So,
Okay.
and then, in that courtroom, we had a lot of millwork that we're changing up. Instead of a walnut, we're going to use a European beech and stain it a dark color and some other value engineering ideas like that.
Would you repeat where we are with the third story now? You mentioned the third, what did you say about the third store, or third floor of the jail? What did you say? Did you?
I can't recall what I said about the third floor.
I thought
We've still
you-
got we're still considering the whole design.
The whole design, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I didn't quite understand.
Could you explain a little bit more about the elevator situation? Because I think it came in where it could only be bid to one.
It's what I've been told by general contractors. There was only one elevator. There's 3 elevator people in business around this area. Actually, there's 4, but there was only one elevator contractor on bid day, even though they had commitments. The general contractors had commitments for other elevator people to bid the project. All 3 of them were involved, as listed in the specification. 2 of them did not bid, so you ended up with one elevator company, and it has to do with the way the security recall ties in with the elevator components itself. And I'm actually had a conversation with one of the guys that did not bid it, asking him why. And he looked at it and he cannot make his elevator very conveniently mix in with the security system that you have for the detention area. So he just didn't bid it. And they didn't know that until bidding. So we're going back. We had a conversation today. The designer and I had a conversation today, and we've been digging into that for ever since April, but we're trying to understand that. There's, in specifications in elevators, traction elevators, there's 4 paragraphs there that one of the people that didn't bid it said, this is the reason I didn't bid this elevator. And we're trying to make sure, and this company that he represents actually will do detention elevators, but he didn't do this one just because it was It was the way that the language was. It's kind of a nuance of how that language was. And nobody knew that until 1:30 PM and your bids turned in at 2. So, because he told the guys he was going to bid, but he didn't. So
Pettit?
those general contractors ended up with one elevator company.
Mr. Pettit, do you have an updated timeline to expect?
Yeah, the designer thinks he's going to be finished with the redesign the end of July. I don't have specific dates yet, and that means that we could put it out for bid at that time. We need about a 4 or 5 week bid time, and so it'd be bidding end of August.
End of August.
In the fall, but what do you mean by fall?
End of August. End of August.
I know from the last time, this thing kept being extended.
Yep.
So we had a bid date, and then it was extended. Are we going to do that again?
I hope not. So
Well, I do too.
hopefully we have the documents better put together this time.
I'm going to be extremely upset myself if we keep pushing this thing farther down the road.
Yep. So I think it's the end of August is when it will come back in for bid.
Okay.
Design should be done, I would expect on the 24th of July, is that your next meeting, that you're together, that your designer will be here with his VE ideas and what the exterior of the building will look like. That's kind of one of our goals.
Any other questions?
I got one. I still have a little issue with the fact that you bid it out, and I can't remember all the numbers, okay, and then now you can go back, oh, we can save you money by doing this. Well, we can save money, why didn't we do that to begin with?
We did.
I mean, to me, what it sounds like is, well, let's do this, we can get more money. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm on a fixed fee myself.
I'm
but-
not blaming the middleman.
I can't answer that question, I don't guess, very fairly, but I do know that they did, that's one of the reasons we had a prolonged or protracted bid period, is because we did change some of those things, and we knew that those foundations needed an addressing, and we approached it by redesigning that foundation and that macropile system to where it probably saved $2 million off the bids that we saw.
Right, but could they have not done that beforehand?
I wish we had, but we just didn't have all the information we needed. We actually, there's an outfit that bid the job, and he wasn't low on bid day, but he come to me and started saying, let's go to this soil nail wall, and that gets the shear presses off the wall. It reduces this. I had a general contractor that was second bidder saying we did this mat foundation, and it saved the University of Tennessee X amount of dollars. It's actually cheaper. So that was kind of things that reported to me, and we're trying to get that back out.
So we saved a couple $1 million there, correct?
Yeah.
Give or take?
Yep.
Okay, now, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, now why can't we go over here and save some more money? Because the fact is, they probably didn't do value engineering properly, or they could do something different, or,
Well,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I mean,
We go through the whole project like that.
just to reduce the depth of the foundations, the micropiles, you saved a bunch of money right there.
And that's great, and I love that. But why not, HVAC system? Well, they could have done it like this and saved us a bunch of money. Or this system over here, they could have saved us a lot of money. It just puts a question in our minds.
Absolutely. I mean, I understand that. So you got an HVAC system that's a chiller and a cooling tower and
And I was just using that for example.
well, yeah, but that's a valid point.
Uh-huh.
So you say, okay, there is a value engineering idea there that you can save a bunch of money in the bid process by going to what they call a DX system, which is your conventional system that's kind of rooftop package units and stuff like that. But you got to have the engineers look at that, and there's energy codes you got to meet, plus operating cost over the years, plus the maintenance on the DX system versus this chiller and boiler system. So all that takes into account that what's the best system for the building.
Right.
So even though I threw that out, and I got that idea, from the mechanical contractor, it was listed low on the building, they've got to look at that as the designers who's responsible to give you something that you can operate afterwards and make up their mind what they can do with that system.
And I'm like Chairman Shipley, we can't afford to push this thing much further down the road because every time
No.
we push it down the road, it's costing us more money.
Yep. Inflation is out of hand.
Especially the interest, I'm concerned about the
You're
interest.
correct.
Because it's going, shift the other way one of these days quickly.
Yep.
Then we're going to be hurting.
I'll just make a comment that I think you've done exactly what we hired you to do, is find out ways to cut
Well,
this.
it's always, quarterbacking from the sofa rather than on the field, but I wished I'd have thought about the Matt Foundation first. I wished I had. I mean, we were thinking about the micropiles, and it was complicated, and you had the soil cement stuff, and can we change it? And we took an extra 3 weeks during the bid process to try to get some money. And it was realized we just can't see it because we did it before bid time.
Right.
So we went back and attacked it again, because to me, the foundations, as long as it's engineered properly, and you don't have differential settlement, and you don't have cracks in your building, to be basic about it, as long as it's engineered properly, you never see that money. You're going to spend all this money below grade and never get benefit of it. So let's go back and attack that. It's an expensive component to the building, and it is in every building. Don't get me wrong, but let's find another way to skin the cat. And still
Mr.
get
Pettit,
us a
and I don't
fund.
want you thinking we're throwing you under the bus.
Oh,
We're
that's
not,
okay.
I just, but if it saves us $1 million, I hope those bus wheels don't hurt too much.
Well, I mean, I understand
Because-
your frustration, so it's.
And I'm sorry, you're taking a lot of the brunt that Mosley should be taking, but they're not here, so we're attacking you.
Yeah.
That's
We're
okay.
sorry, but they'll be here soon, hopefully, and
Yeah.
you tell them
Well,
they
we're
better,
planning
they
right
better be
now
ready.
that they'll be here the 24th. So,
Okay.
And then we'll hopefully, we got something where we can, when we get it bid, we can go forward with it. We need to have the steel industry pump the brakes and catch up a little bit, and maybe that gives us some time. So again, wood softening, the cost of wood softening up a little bit, and maybe steel release some too. So,
Any other questions?
Yeah.
sure.
Tony, I think you're doing what the project manager is getting paid to do.
He's already earned his money.
But
No, I'm still trying to earn my money, but go
let
ahead,
me
sir.
finish,
Yes,
Mr.
sir,
Shipley,
Mr.
if you don't
Naismith.
mind.
Yeah.
But you've come up with a couple of things, and that's a start. But I'm on along with Tim. Why didn't we know this at the beginning? Why didn't we know it?
Well, I tell you, the Matt Foundation is kind of an innovative idea. I didn't think about it. I mean, you have these, when you look at it, you think, how in the world, when you look at this, if you get a chance and we get forward with this, go out there and look at the micropile process. It's kind of a messy deal when you drill all these little micropiles in the ground. And when you see it, it's going to be half of what you had before. And just when you see it now, it'll be a forest of little pops sticking up out of the ground. Before, it was twice that much. So when we get down the road, you'll see it. I knew that was a whole lot of micropiles. And we attacked it by still keeping the pile caps in, which are placed on top of the micropiles. And then when that general contractor suggested to me to go with the Matt Foundation, you'll save money by the time you put the micropiles in, your soil cement in, and you form around it, and you backfill it in. Look at that. And we looked at that, and engineers are still engineering it, and it's going to work. We ran an estimate for a Matt Foundation versus the pile caps, and just in the concrete itself, you save $70,000. Concrete and re-steel.
This design that they're working on now, are they looking at ways to save on that?
Yes,
design?
I mean, they've come up
are
with ideas too. They've come up and said, we're going to, they've run some things by the staff that's using it, like they're using S-hooks for data rather than cable trays outside the secure areas. Another way of carrying your low voltage wiring, a less expensive way. would go with what we call MC cabling for your light fixtures and some of your electrical powering rather than running it through a conduit, saves money and time. They're doing that too. They're coming up with those ideas.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, Tony. Item 3A, the Hale House renovations. Mayor Britton.
At your desk, there should be a spreadsheet which shows the bids that came in on the Hale House back in February. And there were 3 bidders for the renovation of that property. The renovation primarily consisted of building an ADA ramp to the front of the building, handicapped restroom, and then rewiring the entire house. And also some cosmetic work downstairs on the first level. Well, we had 3 bidders. One did not submit his bid properly. You can see the results. The low bid was $225,000. The other was $354,000. And at the time, the architect wasn't happy with the bids. When we were also working on a grant to see if we could reduce the cost of the project to the county. Well, as time went on, the bid expired. It was good for 45 days. The bid expired in April. The grant didn't materialize. So what we're asking today is to rebid the project at the same concept. The electrical is the most costly because right now, as what the specs call for, because the house it's not on the historic registry, but we consider it an historic house to the history of Morristown and Hamilton County. The specs call for the conduit to be, and the wiring to be inside the wall, not in conduit running down the outside of the wall, and that is the most costly part of the project. So, but what we're here for tonight is just to ask for permission to go ahead and bid the project again.
Just rebid it, right?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? I hear a motion to rebid.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Did you get a second? Who seconded? James Dale.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Horner. This time, Chairman DeBoard of the Finance Committee, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Do we have any visitors wishing to address the committee on items of the agenda?
Karen Arwood, 1501 Eller Road. Well, seeing as that what I just heard, that we're bound and determined to go forward with the Taj Mahal jail, then we got to have some cost cuts somewhere in this county. And myself going through monthly checks, which I'm sure nobody else up here goes through and bothers to look to see what they're going for. Codes Compliance Office. I don't know how many people work in there, whatever. Twice so far, this month and back in the month of March, this is for uniforms, advertising expressions, $66 and another $246. I know this sounds like small potatoes compared, but all this stuff adds up to big bucks in a year and towards a budget. But putting it under called uniforms, but advertising expressions is here in town and they sell little trinket stuff that might have somebody's name printed on it. And why Codes Compliance needs to do that and then hide it under uniforms, give me a break. I'd really like to see somebody look into some of these things on the monthly checks. And our local health center, this month, $545 to Redbud Deli. That's an awful lot of food. I don't know why that falls on the taxpayers' back. English Mountain Coffee this month. Specialty gourmet coffee for the health center at $221.80. Back in March, they spent $343.50 on gourmet coffee. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, if you guys would start looking at monthly checks, they don't come to you for approval if you can't do something about it, right? If you can't do anything about the expenditures, then why do you need to even go through the motion of approving checks? A lot of this, I could go on and on about some ridiculous expenses because nobody's ever said anything, and all these little offices just, well, nobody said anything to me for spending for this, so let's try this. And this is getting ridiculous. Also, the health department in March, instead of Redbud Deli, let's see, we got $700 Walmart for food. Who are we feeding at the local health department on the taxpayers, and gourmet coffee on the taxpayers' backs? This is just a few examples. Somebody, somewhere, there's 14 of you, that this has got to get under control because we're bleeding at every seam. Enough's enough. Thank you.
My name's Edna Green. I live at 4981 Cameron Road. My question, since this is the Finance Committee, Mr. Capps has a conflict of interest or is a defendant in 2 lawsuits. Can the mayor, without county commission approval, pick a different attorney to represent the county? Where is the mayor's authority to hire and contract with other employees to represent the county commission without the commission's approval? I'd like to have an answer if possible. I went over Mr. Capps' submitted invoices. He had several for pending litigation, and evidently he doesn't know how to itemize a bill. What a shame he's an attorney, because he should have better sense. Either one of you that are business people, I'm sure you do a better job of it. But need to be asking some questions. I reviewed his bills, and I'd love to have an answer if you have time to do so. But you need to start correcting and hold on to our money. This beautiful Taj Mahal that we're getting ready to have that does not make a bit of sense. Some of you look at me like you're in Never Never Land. You need to wake up. I know some of you don't care, but some of you I do think do care. I really think you do. And I think some of you know as older taxpayers, we are bleeding enough. We are getting ready to lose another factory in Hamlin County. I was one of the recluses from Anchor Advance. My husband was one of them from the Burke line. We've lost several jobs. You can holler, yeah, we're going to have a higher tax rate. You got to have money to pay it to people. And if people ain't got no jobs, they can't pay it. So please, wake up. But I'd like to have some answers if you folks can take time to do so. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the committee? In the item number 2, recurring business, you have the presentation of the checks. Do we have a motion to approve as submitted? So moved. We got a motion. Do we have a second? Got a second, Mr. Ward? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Hold on, Randy.
The second.
He's not. I'm sorry.
Taylor's not on the
Okay,
committee.
do we have a second?
Second.
Do we need to revote that?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. And item 4A, this is purchasing policy and procedure update, May 18th of 2021.
Miss Ann Bryant Hurst.
As you can see on the front of, excuse me, let me turn to it. It's been 5 years since we updated our purchasing policies and procedures. And again, this is kind of an outgrowth of just needing to update things in general. Through this next year, I'll be bringing more policies and procedures so they can be updated and be a little more current. I'm just going to hit the highlights of these. I expanded the discussion of estimates in the policy. This is because we want our folks to make good estimates when they do their purchase orders, but they need to make everyone needs to get their purchase orders before anything is purchased. And it's okay to use your best sense of estimate on this. That's just kind of what we're talking about here. And then I expanded a whole section of credit cards and purchasing cards and added an addendum which contains best practices that we got from CTAS. Currently, we have 7 county credit cards, and we are going to want everyone who has a card to sign an agreement that they have reviewed all the policies. And then I expanded the section on disposals of assets. You know, we bring things to you to surplus, but we never had very much detail at all in that section of the procedures. Now, I know you'll have a chance before next week to look at these, and if you, after you have a chance to look them over, if you have any questions, please let me know. And just so you know, I did submit this to county audit, and they have reviewed it and have incorporated any comments that they had.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4B, bid tabulation on new concrete sidewalk and steps for Justice Center. Mayor Britton.
You may recall that we've discussed, I think it might have been last month before, about a grant that we received from Tennessee Risk Management Trust for a safety project. And the project that was awarded the grant was building some concrete steps at the rear of the Justice Center down a steep embankment where a couple of people have fallen, and one was broke her ankle and was a pretty serious injury. So we bid the project. We received one bid from East Tennessee Construction of Talbot for $15,000. The grant pays $8,450 of it, and I think we approved last month a budget amendment for to cover the balance. But we're recommending that the project be awarded to East Tennessee Construction.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4C, Hamilton County Board of Education Federal Project Task Flow. Business Supervisor Tracy Amtrigan.
Thank you. This resolution represents a request from the board to move $1 million from our general fund into our federal projects fund. Just to give a little bit of history, in years past, the state allowed us to request approximate amounts. For example, if we knew we were going to have approximately $450,000 in payroll, 10 days prior, we could request that amount, and we would have the funds available on payday to expend. Several years ago, they went to a reimbursement-only basis, and at that time, they said, you cannot request reimbursement until you actually expend the money. At that point in time, the board brought a request up here to move funding, and actually the commission allowed us to move $500,000 over to federal programs to create that cash flow so that we could expend the money and wait 9 to 10 days to get our money back. With the ESSER money coming on board, what is normally $6 to $7 million in grant funding has become more like $38 million in grant funding. And so we need additional cash flow to be able to expend money prior to requesting money from the state for reimbursement. That money will stay in the federal projects fund until the ESSER money has been expended, and then the board will return to the commission, which is the only way that money can move back, and we will move the funds back to the general fund with your permission. I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Ketchum. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 4D, grant funds awarded for Office of Criminal Justice Programs. Mayor Britton?
Mr. Chair, before we leave the education piece, can I just say one thing? The commission asked for me to provide you with a note, and I forgot it in my presentation. We just finished the paving up, and it looks as if it's going to be at least $50,000 that we'll bring back from the West High School project. So we told you that we would get it done on time and under budget, and we've done so. And so we're finishing things up, finishing that last little details, and we'll be reverting at least $50,000 back to the commission. So I did want to, you asked me for that last time, and I forgot to add that. So
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4D, grant funding award for the Office of Criminal Justice Programs. Mayor Britton?
At your desk, there should be a memo that was distributed. Hamilton County has been awarded a grant from the Office of Criminal Justice Programs to update our video arraignment system, and it's $45,000, no match, and we're just asking for permission to accept the grant, and then we'll start the process of buying the technology we need to upgrade the video arraignment system.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion? We got a second? Mr. Steck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4E, budget amendment, Hamilton County Board of Education budget amendment number 8 for $1,306,10.54. Ms. Antrican?
Yes, sir. This budget amendment of the $1.3 million, $1.1 million is the state funding for our summer camps this summer to provide remediation services to address learning loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These camps will serve 930 elementary students, 360 middle school students, and will operate through July 22nd. All supplies, transportation, and staffing are included in this budget. Any excess would be funded through ESSER funding. The second part of the amendment is a coding and robotics grant through our career and technical ed program. This funding is through the state as well, and will provide coding and robotics classroom kits, professional development for elementary and middle school teachers, to provide instruction to students prior to introducing them to those subjects in high school. That's about $75,895. And the last two items, tobacco cessation grant, $1,901, in conjunction with the health department for the county. They provide T-shirts for the students who have qualified for Elite Fitness Day with tobacco cessation slogans on them. And $38,900 is a U-Trust grant specifically for staff appreciation this year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on those items.
And, Ms. Chair, just one other piece that we would like to add with that. we do want the commission to know that we're out searching for external sources of revenue all the time to release the tax burden on our citizens. And I think our CTE program, we just received a grant for $2 million for our CTE program that Chuck Carter and Daniel Aldridge made to increase the amount of technology and equipment that we have in CTE. So we just want the commission to know that it's not always us just coming to ask for money. We're always searching for external sources, and we'll provide the commission with an update on all the grants that we've received, which is millions of dollars in terms of some programming pieces. So we did want you to just know that we are actively searching for other ways to get funding for our students and for our programming. And this is just one of the things that we're doing. So, thank you.
Are these summer bridge camps, are these new?
They are. They are, and they're specifically to address that learning loss
Okay,
from this past year.
I understand.
Mr. Shaw, the other thing that I think is pretty amazing too is that we've got a quarter of our teachers, after a long, difficult year,
Still working.
a long, difficult year, we got a quarter of our teachers coming back, working virtually all summer long, just to
Right.
catch these kids up. So I think, our teachers showed a great deal of leadership, never missed a day, were in there every single day working. And then we gave them a week off. We gave them 5 days off and told them to come on back. And so those folks are coming back and they're working virtually all summer long to keep our kids caught up. And I was there today, and it'd break your heart to see some of these kids coming back in. They, some of these kids are most at-risk kids, and our teachers are right there taking care of them, so.
Do you have a waiting list?
Pardon me?
For teachers, do you have enough teachers? Do you have a waiting list?
We do have enough teachers. Our teachers really came through for us this year. We're really worried about that to begin with, but we sent out a call. And some of them are doing, 3 weeks, and another one's doing another 3 weeks, so they can get out and get a little vacation time. But our administrators stepped up too. Our principals are in there working, and our teachers are aides. And so we just feel really good about our folks and very proud of them.
I move that we approve.
Got a motion to approve? Got a
Second.
second from Mr. Huntsman. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4G, budget amendments for finance. Ms. Bryant, if you will. Yes. Item G1, Fund 101 for County Commission of $1,295.
This is the funding for the new intern that's here with us tonight. And this adds the funding for that to the county commission's budget. And we were able to take it from another line item in the budget for this year.
Do we have
I make a motion we approve.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second? Got a second, Mr. Huntsman? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G2, Fund 101, Juvenile Court for $4,200.
This is funding to help pay the comp time, for the director. That particular individual works a lot of extra time, and we need to keep that within kind of a reasonable area.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Let's catch that. All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G3, Register of Deeds for $5,200.
This is just moving funds within the budget. $200 for postal charges, and as you've seen, several amendments for postal charges this year. More offices did transactions by mail. And then the data processing equipment, this is a wash item, typically. What comes in, they'll charge the data processing fee and then pay that out. But this has been an exceptionally busy year in the Register of Deeds office. And again, we're able to fund it from within his budget.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Huntsman, do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G4 for other social, cultural, and recreational, and that's for $10,000.
That name's just maybe slightly misleading. We're going to move that into a different line item, but this is our tire grant. And again, there have been several events this year. But again, whatever we pay out, we get paid for from the state and send it to the landfill. And it just, as of May, when we got our last information from the state, we needed more money in both the revenue line item and the expense line item. It was going to be around $90,000 this year that we've received in tire grants.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
James. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cashel. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G5, others, social, cultural, and recreation for $6,300.
This is, I believe, the only item we have tonight which requests funds from fund balance. And what this is our litter grant. Last year, we didn't have one of the tire events that we usually did, but we had 2 this year. So some of the money last year went back into fund balance, and now we're just pulling it back out to cover this second tire event.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion, do we have a second? Mr. Huntsman? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G6, Fund 101, Public Safety Projects for $215,000.
Well, I misspoke. This does come out of fund balance also, but this is the purchase of the Hyde property, which you already approved. But this is the budget amendment so that we can actually write the check.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question, do we have has this house been inspected?
Now, it's my understanding that there has been some inspection, but let me defer that.
Inspected, we've been through it.
Like for mold, for termites?
No, we didn't pay for an inspection. No.
So we don't have an inspection on that house yet.
We've been through it though, and we didn't see any of that.
It's been approved, the city approved it, or, I mean, who says the house is good to go? I mean, when you buy a house, you get it inspected.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Pardon?
Sometimes, yes, especially when you have mortgages, it's required.
But this time, no.
But we didn't have it inspected.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G7, Fund 116, Sanitation Garbage Department for $20,000.
This is just to make sure that we have sufficient funding in the line item for disposal fees for our last invoice of the year. We won't get that last invoice until July. And last year, our July invoice for disposal fees was over $120,000. Again, a COVID impact, but we're just wanting to make sure if the bill comes in low, then we won't pay it, and it won't be used.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Mr. Huntsman? Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G8, Fund 131, Highway Department for $2,000.
This is just a request from the Highway Department to move money into the gasoline line item and to take those funds from the diesel fuel line item.
Do we have a motion? We've got a motion, Mr. Huntsman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4G9, Fund 151 for general debt service for $3,600.
A year ago, we were approved by that USDA revolving fund loan through the Appalachian Electric Cooperative, and we are just now having to make our first payments on that loan. And this is a one-time fee for that, and there is no interest other than this particular fee. And it was a $360,000 loan.
Do we have a motion?
Make the
Got a
motion.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman of the Board. At this time, Chairman of the Board, you're recognized again as the Chair of the Personnel Committee.
I'd like to call the Personnel Committee to order. Do we have anyone that would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we have no old business and new business. 4A, approval of education pay submissions.
Motion.
Got a motion? Got a second? Got a motion and a second? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4B, approval of longevity pay submissions. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4C, revisions to employee handbook, Hamilton County Government Vehicle Use. This is for a policy change. Mayor Bredden?
This is, as we continue to update our employee policy manual, this deals with vehicle use procedures. This document goes into the vehicles that county employees use. The print in red are changes to the document. So you'll see, like that first paragraph on page 1 just talks about that an employee has to sign a form that says they've read the policies and procedures, and then this document is in the glove box, and the last page is a new page, and it explains what you're to do when certain things happen. If you have a wreck, the car breaks down, this is what you do. So this is just an updating a policy and procedure.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve.
Got a motion? Do we have a second? Second. Tim Horner. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 4D, revisions to employee handbook bereavement leave. Mayor Bredden?
In the county handbook, we offer bereavement leave to employees who suffers death in the family, and they receive 3 days of paid leave, which won't be charged against their vacation time. A request came into our HR department to expand the qualifying family members, if they passed away, to add the spouse of a child, a stepchild, and the stepchild's spouse, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, or a step-grandchild. And we polled department heads to see whether they would, they supported this change or not, this addition, and a vast majority of them voted yes. So this is a request to expand the list of family members if they pass away, that the employees would qualify for the leave.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Got a motion, Mr. Ward?
Bill, is that
Second, James.
just the one person that works for the county though, not the family, right? We don't pay them money.
No, just the employee, right.
Okay, just
Right.
one employee.
Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman of the Board. This time, the Chair will recognize Chairman Goins of the Public Service Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. I call a Public Service Committee to order. Any visitor wishing to address the committee?
Bonnie Bullington, 317 Stubblefield Street, Whitesburg. I would like to request this committee to take to the regular commissioners meeting to be voted on to remove Nancy Phillips from the Rules Committee for her actions concerning the taxpayers. It's not acceptable that somebody can sit up here and make rules that we have to follow while they don't have to follow the rules. And they can look down their nose at us and put us down and call us names. And for you commissioners to allow that to happen, that says a lot for you guys. This is just unacceptable. She should have already been removed from that committee. And it's time, and I request you take it before the body of the commission and the commissioners meeting for a vote to have her removed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I also agree with Bonnie that Nancy Phillips does need to be removed from the Rules Committee. I've sent emails to each of you with screenshots of her comments concerning citizens. And there's a couple of you that was interested in them, Mr. Ackard, Mr. Neesmith, Mr. DeBoard. The rest of you just didn't care. So, I don't see how that you can justify allowing someone who's supposed to be sitting up here to talk to people that way, using profanity referring to citizens. I mean, we're not allowed to come up here and put profanity to y'all, so why do you allow it to come to us? And we brought it to you before, we'd like you to take a stand on it one way or the other. If you're going to take a vote, let people know, are you going to back it up or are you going to dismiss her for her actions? We want an answer from you one way or the other. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I agree. We don't need anybody sitting on the board that uses talk like that. It's not good. Y'all are, some of you all are Christians, you say you are, you go to church and you're deacons. You wouldn't allow that. And I have nothing against Nancy. She needs to talk to the Lord and repent, just like I do every day. We all have to do it every day. So I say she needs to be reprimanded, and if she doesn't accept that, then you need to get her off the board.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Resolution to amend the zoning map of Hamlet County, Tennessee of rezoning tax map 011, parcel 078.04, District 03, Lot 3 of Leonard and Imogene Murphy. Property at 3 Springs Road, Russell, Tennessee, 37860, from R1 to A1. Lori, I want to apologize for you sitting back here so patiently and everything, going through this whole thing.
No,
But
interesting. I'm glad to do it. Glad to do it, Mr. Goins. And good evening to all the commissioners. This request comes from property owner Sharon Wilson. She's asking to rezone her property at 1420 3 Springs Road from R1, which is residential, to A1 agricultural. Her intent is to locate a single wide mobile home on her property, which is a use that is not currently allowed in R1 districts. As the map should show in your packet, everything across 3 Springs Road is zoned A1, as the majority of this area of the county is still being used for farmland and residential housing. Staff would recommend the request be granted based on its compatibility with adjoining properties. And your Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval to the Commission. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
any questions?
Is this a subdivision?
No, sir. I think that it had, it had originally been one large piece of property, and I think somebody along historically had divided the property into 3 lots. I think it's a 3-acre parcel.
Is it spot zoning?
No, sir.
You're not spot zoning?
No, sir. Everything across Three Springs Road is zoned A1, which is what she's wanting to go to.
Motion to approve, Chairman.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
James Stepp.
Do I have a second?
Who seconded?
Nobody yet.
I'll second.
There's a second.
They can.
Any discussion? Oh, I got one. Is that a single wide or double wide, or do we know?
It's a single wide.
Single wide?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it has to be rezoned to A1.
Okay.
True.
All in favor of the motion, make a statement saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
4B, recommendation by the GIS, the street naming, Waterfront Terrace, Lori Matthews. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. This street name, Waterfront Terrace, has been accepted by E911 and the Morristown Hamblin GIS staff. It will be located off of Low Road and used to access the new reserve subdivision by Philip Carlisle. And it's a very short road, less than 200 feet long.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Second with Tim. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, make a statement saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 4C, surplus item from the jail, Captain Teresa Laws.
I think Captain Laws has left. What this is, and there's a memo in your packet, there are some metal kiosks that one of the communication companies have left behind, and it's our property, and they're just wanting to surplus it so they can take it to the crusher and turn the money into the general fund.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Is there anything that can be done to those things other than taking them down to the crusher?
There's no market for them because it's like the cover of the kiosk. It's
Oh,
not the
okay.
whole, it's not the electronics.
Okay.
It's just the metal cover.
Thank you. Any discussion, other discussion? All in favor of making motion by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 4D, surplus items of community services work program bus.
Yeah, last month, you voted to surplus 2 of the buses. We had 3 buses for this program, and we're asking that this bus be surplused as well. It was a bus that was gifted to the county from Douglas Cherokee several years ago, and it'll be sold on Gov Deals. We've listed the other 2 just recently.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Tim Horner. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of making this motion, make a statement saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Goins. This time, the chair will recognize Chairman Stepp of the Calendar and Rules Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Call to order the Calendar and Rules Committee. Item 2, I want to say that on the, anyone wishing to address the committee, that the speaker speaks on adding or subtracting anything on the calendar and consent items, on the calendar and regular calendar items only. Anyone wishing to address that?
Not too thrilled with that, just quick change in the Calendar and Rules Committee. Because what I want to say is, if you keep asking the wrong question, you'll always get the wrong answer. And tonight, I've seen the wrong
Ms. Noel,
question asked
I'm
over
sorry, I'm asking if you're
and
asking if you're
over
moving
and
something or
over.
adding something to the calendar or the regular calendar.
Okay, I
I'm
want you
sorry.
to
If
add
you're
it
not,
to,
ma'am, I'll
I'd like you
ask
to
sit
add
down,
it,
please.
excuse me, I'd like you to add it to the jail committee to start asking the right question about the jail. You sat here tonight, and it's all about taking $100 million Taj Mahal jail.
Ms. Noe, is that on
and
there to
reduce-
add to this or subtract
I ask you to
this?
add it. Add it,
You're
please.
asking me to add this?
Yes. You kept asking the question, how can we reduce a $100 million jail? That's not the right question. You don't need to be doing a $100 million jail, or reducing it by 10 and spending 90, or reducing it by 20 and spending 80. The right question to ask is there an alternative? And yes, there is. One-story pods. And you can shake your head all you want.
Ms. Noe, that's not what was asking here. Anything that we have here to add or take away from this calendar and regular calendar,
I want
that's
you
not
to
something that
add-
we are.
Add discussion of the jail and do it the right way.
That's all you need to say then.
No, that isn't.
No,
I
ma'am,
have
you don't
5
need to go into
minutes to
discussion of
expound
it.
on
You don't
that.
need to go into the discussion of it.
You've asked the wrong question. You don't even get Mosley here. That is incredible. And yeah, poor Mr. Pettit had to sit here. Of course, he doesn't have much to
Mrs.
say.
Noe, you're continuing to talk when I'm asking you.
I sure am.
That's it. Anything to add, that's it.
Add discussion
That's all we need to
of
know.
the jail, of a one-story jail.
Thank you, ma'am.
Because it's cheaper, it's better, it's safer, it's more staffable.
You're sitting there trying to explain something. All I'm asking you is
I'm
to add
I'm
or discuss.
explaining why you
Add or
need
take
to
away,
add
and
that.
That's it.
Oh, come on.
That's it. This committee is not for that. This committee is not for sitting here and discussing that item. That's it.
You said I have something to add. I told you what I have to add,
I've
but I
told
have to
time
tell
and
you
time
why.
again, that's it. To add or to take away from it, that's it.
And while you're at it, I'd like you to add what these people talked about, removal of Ms. Phillips from the Rules Committee. I see this comment that, oh, we'd be infringing on her First Amendment rights. Well, that didn't bother you with the COAG group. And further, that's not, telling her she can't serve on a Rules Committee is not violating her First Amendment rights. She can go out and say all that garbage that she said
Ms.
all
Noe,
day long.
You're sitting here discussing this when I've
So
asked you.
you need to
add
add
or take away, and
that
there
to
you
your
again.
commit,
You're sitting there
to your
discussing this
calendar,
item. That's
removal
not what this
of
is about
Ms.
again. I
Phillips.
told you for the 4th time. Simple as that.
And you can tell me the 5th time and 6th time.
It don't matter to me. I've told you, and I'll tell you again.
Go ahead. That I can't say add removing Ms.
If you
Phillips, and I
add or
can't
subtract,
explain
and that's
why.
it. It's not open for discussion.
Why not? It's public comments. I'm not wanting
It's not-
discussion.
no,
I'm
ma'am.
giving you
It's
public
to add
comments.
something and take away from the
You're such a
calendar.
baby.
I don't want to listen to you say that.
My name's Edna Green again. I'd appreciate it if you would add to the Calendar and Rules Committee, and I'm trying my best to word it like you want it, sir, okay? And I don't mean to pick you on you, I'm just trying to be respectful. And if it offends you, I'll apologize. I'm a deacon's wife, and I know how things are supposed to be conducted. I would appreciate it if you would add it to the Calendars and Rules Committee to ask the questions that I asked earlier of our mayor and the expenses as far as Mr. Capps and on the conflict of interest and the defendant in the other 2 lawsuits. I would like to have an answer. None of you would give me an answer, at least you didn't speak up, so I'm assuming I'm invisible, and I'm sorry that I'm invisible, but I would appreciate an answer, and I'd appreciate it if you would add it to the agenda. And I will promise you this, when I'm sitting in that seat right there next time the election comes, I will ask the questions, and I will push for answers, and I'm not the only one. If God lets us clean out this commission, there will be a change, and hopefully it'll be all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, item 4A, review of regular calendar items. I have a motion.
I'm not on the committee.
Motion.
So, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'll second the motion. Who made the motion?
I did.
Tim and Joe.
Tim.
All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4B, review of consent calendar items. I have a motion.
I make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? If not, all approved, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's all I have, Chairman. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We've accomplished our agenda tonight, so we stand adjourned.
Yeah, Chairman, I'll say one thing. Hey, we're in here to do something. We need to speak up when on these agendas. You know, we either approve it or don't approve it, don't matter. It's just a fact. We need to speak up so we're heard. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We stand adjourned.